You are now listening to Arranged Marriage for the Disabled Billionaire, a full billionaire romance audiobook. Synopsis: he has the money. He has the scars. What he doesn't have is trust. After a devastating accident steals his ability to walk and shatters his belief in love, billionaire Grayson Wolfe retreats into the shadows of his empire, broken and embittered. Love was never meant for men like him, not anymore. When his powerful family arranges a marriage to restore their name, Grayson expects nothing but a cold business transaction. Until he meets Evangeline Hart, a woman with fire in her eyes, secrets in her heart, and a smile that makes him question everything. Bound by duty but haunted by betrayal, Evangeline steps into Grayson's dark world carrying secrets that could destroy them both. She's supposed to be his perfect match on paper. In truth, she's the ticking time bomb planted by his enemies. But the heart doesn't obey rules or contracts. As passion ignites and old wounds are torn open, Grayson and Evangeline must decide. Will they destroy each other? Or will they fight together against the darkness that threatens to consume them? Love was never part of the deal. But love might be their only salvation. In a world of lies, scars, and betrayal, can two broken souls find something real before it's too late? Chapter 1. The moment I stepped into the marble-lined office, I knew my life was about to change, and not for the better. The air reeked of old money and desperation, and my father sat behind the monstrous oak desk, hands steepled, mouth pressed into a grim line. Beside him, my stepmother dabbed fake tears at the corner of her eyes with a handkerchief that still bore the creases from its packaging. I didn't sit. I didn't trust myself not to run if I got too comfortable. "Evangeline," my father said, his voice rough like sandpaper over raw skin. "We have a solution." The last solution had ended with our family business hemorrhaging clients, and my father's name splashed across the scandal sheets in bold, humiliating font. I folded my arms, bracing. "What did you do?" He exchanged a glance with her. Sabrina, the woman who'd replaced my mother before the ink on the divorce papers had dried. She gave a tight, brittle smile. "You're getting married," she said sweetly. The words hit harder than any slap could have. I stared, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I laughed. It cracked in the empty room, too high, too desperate. "I think you mean you're marrying me off," I said. My father slammed his palm against the desk. "It's the only way to save us, Evangeline. Do you think your degrees, your charity work, your pride will keep this family afloat?" I clenched my fists. "Who?" "Grayson Wolfe." The name stopped the blood in my veins. I'd never met him, but everyone knew of Grayson Wolfe, the brilliant tech billionaire who'd built an empire, then vanished from the public eye after a mysterious car crash left him wheelchair-bound. The rumors were vicious. Some said he'd gone mad. Others said he was worse. Calculating, cold, dangerous. My stomach twisted. "Why me?" "Because he asked for you by name," Sabrina said. "You're pretty, polished, and expendable," I finished for her. They said nothing, which was all the answer I needed. I turned on my heel. "No. You'll do it," my father barked. "Or I'll let them take the house. The foundation your mother built. Everything she left you." The room tilted. My mother's face flashed in my mind, all warm smiles and whispered promises. I couldn't lose it. I couldn't lose her. I spun back, my voice scraping from my throat. "When?" "Tomorrow." They'd already signed the papers. Course they had. I was just the last piece to fall into place. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of fittings, legal documents, and whispered warnings from people I barely knew but who had too much to lose if I screwed this up. By the time I stood at the top of the marble steps leading into Wolfe Manor, my body was numb. The iron gates clanged shut behind me, sealing my fate. The door creaked open before I could knock. A man in a crisp black suit and a face carved from stone nodded and stepped aside. "No welcome. No warmth. I stepped inside. Cold. That was my first impression. Everything was too pristine, too perfect, like walking into a museum built by someone who had forgotten what life looked like. My heels echoed sharply against the polished floors as I followed the silent man down a long, endless hallway. At the end, double doors loomed. He pushed them open without a word. Grayson Wolfe sat in a pool of late afternoon light, the wheels of his chair gleaming like silver against the dark floor. He didn't look at me at first. His head was tilted slightly down, studying a file in his lap. His dark hair shadowing a face that looked carved from stone. Harsh lines, a scar trailing down from his temple to the edge of his jaw. When he finally lifted his eyes to mine, the air left my lungs. Cold. Calculating. Distant. "You're late," he said, voice a low rasp. I lifted my chin. I wasn't aware I was scheduled like a dentist appointment. A flicker of something, amusement maybe, crossed his face and disappeared. He gestured lazily to the chair opposite him. "Sit." I wanted to refuse. Every nerve in my body screamed to run. Instead, I crossed the room and sat, keeping my spine stiff and my hands clenched in my lap. "You know why you're here," he said. "Enlighten me," I said sweetly. Another flash in his eyes. "Your leverage." Blinked. "Not wife. Not partner. Leverage." He leaned back, fingers steepled. "Someone close to me orchestrated my accident. Someone who now thinks I'm weak. Marrying you tells the world two things: that I'm still in control, and that I know exactly who my enemies are." I swallowed hard. "You think marrying me will scare them?" "No," he said. "I think marrying you will expose them. And if I say no?" His smile was slow and cutting. "You already said yes. Unless you'd rather explain to your father why the bank just called in his loans." My mouth went dry. He already had his claws deep into my life. "You're a monster," I said softly. "Good," he said. "It means you'll survive here." The wedding wasn't a wedding so much as a transaction. A grim gathering of men in suits, a priest who didn't meet our eyes, and signatures scribbled on lines that might as well have been prison sentences. Grayson didn't kiss me. He didn't even look at me. When it was done, he wheeled away, leaving me standing in the cavernous hall, a stranger in a strange house wearing a crown of thorns disguised as a ring. That night, I roamed the halls like a ghost. Every corridor looked the same. Dark, endless, lined with portraits of people whose faces blurred in the gloom. I kept expecting to see movement in the shadows, hear footsteps behind me, but the house stayed silent. Too silent. I found myself outside a locked door halfway down the west wing. Unlike the others, it was reinforced with thick steel bolts and a keypad. My hand hovered over it, curiosity burning through my fear. "Don't jump." Grayson sat behind me, nearly silent in his chair. "What's behind it?" asked, pulse racing. His face was stone. "Nothing you need to see." I stepped back, heart hammering. "You're hiding something." "Everyone hides something," he said. "The trick is knowing when to look, and when to pretend you didn't see." His words felt like a warning. Or a dare. I slept in the guest room that night, or tried to. Sleep was a cruel joke. Every creak of the manor, every whisper of wind against the windows, jolted me awake. Near midnight I heard it. Scream. Muffled. Cut off too quickly. I bolted upright, my heart slamming against my ribs. Was it my imagination? Part of some nightmare? Another thud echoed down the hall. I threw the covers off and grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy brass candlestick, before creeping into the hall. The lights flickered overhead, casting long, wavering shadows across the polished floors. The scream had come from the locked door. I pressed my ear to the cool steel. Nothing. I started to turn away, then the keypad beeped. Soft click. The door shifted open a fraction. Breathless, I pushed it open just enough to see inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't a storage room. It was a cell. A woman was chained to the wall, her wrists raw, her eyes wild with terror. Before I could react, a strong hand clamped over my mouth from behind, dragging me back into the darkness. And in my ear, Grayson's voice, low and lethal. "You were warned, Evangeline. Now it's too late." Chapter 2. The door slammed shut behind me, echoing through the emptiness of the massive hallway. I barely noticed the cold. My hands shook so badly, I could barely hold the glass of water they'd handed me. The metal was slick, the ice inside a mockery of the storm raging in my chest. I wanted to scream, to throw the glass against the wall, but I'd been warned. Grayson Wolf's world was one of precision, of control. I didn't belong here, and I hated it. "You look like you're about to pass out." Froze. His voice, low, harsh, and undeniably commanding, sliced through the silence like a blade. Grayson stood in the doorway to the next room, watching me. His posture was perfect. His wheelchair almost an extension of his body, sleek and immovable. He was as cold as the air in the room, and twice as unforgiving. The man who had been nothing but a rumor was real, too real. I swallowed hard, setting the glass down on the marble counter, my fingers lingering against the smooth surface as if it could ground me. "You have a way of making an entrance," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. It didn't help that he was devastatingly handsome. Even scarred, even hardened by whatever he'd endured. He exuded a kind of power that couldn't be ignored. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a force of nature. His lip curled into the slightest of smirks. "Did you expect a knight in shining armor? Sorry to disappoint." "Not at all," I fired back, my pulse quickening. "I've had enough of those." The smile flickered out of his eyes, replaced by something sharper, more calculating. The room felt smaller, the space between us closing even as I tried to widen it. "You look lost," he said. His voice a low drawl that made my skin prickle. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I bit out, the sarcasm not hidden at all. "Just getting used to being sold off like a commodity." His eyes darkened, the smirk gone entirely. "You think I wanted this? You think I planned for this?" He wheeled closer, his eyes burning into me. "You're as much a pawn in this game as I am." I wanted to step back. I wanted to keep some distance between us, but I held my ground. That's rich coming from someone who doesn't even know what it's like to not have everything handed to them on a silver platter. His gaze flickered over me, once, twice, like he was deciding whether to engage or dismiss me. "You're wrong. You have no idea what it's like to lose everything." The words hung between us, thick with something I couldn't name, something dark. I could feel it in the way he looked at me, the tension building in the air until it was almost unbearable. I had no idea what he'd been through, but I wasn't here to be his therapist. I had my own demons to face. "You don't get to play the victim," I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. "Not here. Not with me. Is that how you deal with things, Evangeline?" His voice dropped, dangerous and intimate. "By pretending to be better than everyone else." My heart thudded against my ribs, and I realized just how close he had come. His presence filled the room, suffocating me with the weight of his eyes. I didn't back down. "You think you know me," I whispered, taking a step closer. "You don't know anything about me." For a moment, the space between us was charged, the air thick with unspoken things that neither of us were willing to say aloud. His gaze darkened, and I caught the faintest flicker of something vulnerable, something I didn't expect. "You're right," he said quietly, voice ragged. "I don't. And I don't care to." I wanted to snap back, wanted to challenge him, but something in his tone made me hesitate. There was an edge to his words that unsettled me, something raw beneath the coldness. "So," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. This is how it's going to be. I'm just supposed to smile and play the part. His lips tightened, his jaw clenching as if my words had cut deeper than he wanted to admit. You're not just playing a part, Evangeline. You're in this whether you like it or not. You and I both have too much to lose. I couldn't look at him. The intensity of his gaze burned, and I hated how it made my insides twist. I hated the fact that he was right. We were both trapped in this twisted game of marriage and manipulation. You're asking me to trust you, I said, my voice shaky despite myself. Why should I? Because, he began, his voice suddenly low and sharp. You don't have a choice. Not anymore. I wanted to snap at him, tell him that I didn't need his permission, that I didn't need anything from him. But the words caught in my throat. The truth was, I was just as much a prisoner as he was. Maybe more. He was the one pulling the strings, but I had my own reasons for agreeing to this charade. I exhaled slowly, my anger giving way to something else, something more dangerous. You think you can control me? You're wrong. His eyes narrowed. Try me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The air crackled, heavy with the tension between us. I could feel his breath on my skin, could see the way his fingers twitched at his sides as if he wanted to reach out and... The door opened behind him. A servant stepped inside, glancing at the two of us with barely concealed curiosity. Mr. Wolfe, the servant said, her voice breaking the spell. Your meeting is ready. Grayson turned without a word, wheeling himself back toward the door, his body rigid with control. We're done here. I stood frozen for a moment, my heart still pounding, my body still buzzing with the energy of what had just transpired between us. Meeting. Course. He had no time for this. For me. But as he paused in the doorway, his hand on the frame, he looked over his shoulder. Just for a second. Long enough for his gaze to meet mine. Piercing and unreadable. Don't forget, Evangeline, he said, voice low and dangerous. I don't need you to trust me. I need you to survive me. And then he was gone, leaving me standing in the middle of the room, my head spinning. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage at the injustice of it all. But deep down I knew one thing. I'd just crossed a line. And there was no going back. I turned, walking toward the window to look out at the sprawling city below. The night had fallen, but the lights of the city flickered like stars, almost as if mocking me. A sudden noise behind me made me whip around. The door had clicked open again. Grayson stood there, his silhouette stark against the light. And in his hand, he held a file, thick and sealed. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is just business, he said quietly. You're in this now. For better or for worse. The file dropped onto the table with a soft thud. I stared at it, feeling the weight of whatever it contained pressing down on my chest. I hope you're ready, he said, the door clicking shut behind him. Chapter 3. The chapel was stunning. A sea of ivory and gold, with delicate crystal chandeliers hanging like jewels from the high ceiling. The scent of roses filled the air, mixing with the soft murmur of society's elite as they buzzed in anticipation. Cameras flashed, and the world was watching. I wasn't supposed to care about that, but somehow the weight of it all pressed down on me, a suffocating reminder of how far I'd fallen. This wasn't the kind of wedding I'd dreamed of as a little girl. There was no love here, no romance. There was just business. Just survival. I felt the cold, unforgiving gaze of Grayson Wolfe on my back as we stood before the altar. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit that clung to his broad frame. His wheelchair just as sharp and sleek as the man himself. His face, as always, was a mask of impassivity. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly as if calculating something, always calculating. My heart pounded against my ribcage. Had to be an act. There was no way I could marry him without it being a performance for everyone around us. And yet, as the priest began to speak, the weight of what we were doing seemed to settle in even deeper. Dearly beloved, the priest's voice rang out steady and warm. We are gathered here today to witness the union of this man and woman, joined in holy matrimony. I couldn't breathe. His words, despite their beauty, were suffocating me. The promises I was about to make, the vows I had to say, seemed like a betrayal, even if I knew deep down they meant nothing. Nothing but a formality. A flicker of movement caught my eye. Grayson's hand, resting on the arm of his wheelchair, twitched slightly. For a moment, I wondered if he was going to speak, if he had anything to say, but he didn't. He just watched me, his gaze intense and unwavering. The flicker of vulnerability that I'd seen once, when he'd looked at me in the hallway, was gone, replaced by something harder, colder. I felt the familiar surge of resentment, that same fire that had fueled my anger the night we first met. The resentment of being here, of being forced into this. The resentment of having to make a deal with a man who had no interest in me beyond the convenience of my family name. Do you, Grayson Wolfe, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? The priest asked, his voice low and steady. Grayson's lips pressed together, and for a moment, I thought he might not answer. But then, in a voice that was as cool as the air around us, he replied, I do. I blinked, the words hitting me like a wave, even though I had known they were coming. I wasn't surprised. Course he did. What choice did he have? This was a marriage of convenience for him as much as it was for me. But why did it feel so final? Why did it make my stomach churn in a way I hadn't expected? Do you, Evangeline Hart, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? The priest asked, his gaze moving from Grayson to me. I opened my mouth, the words on the tip of my tongue, but they stuck there, as if they were foreign. As if I didn't even recognize my own name anymore. What was I doing? What had I gotten myself into? But the thought of losing everything, the gallery, the legacy, my family's reputation, made my decision for me. I had no choice. This wasn't just about me. It never had been. I do, I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. They felt like a lie, but I had to say them. For the sake of my family. For the sake of everything that was at stake. The priest smiled, and in that moment, it felt like the walls were closing in on me. I was trapped, bound to this man who barely knew me, who I barely knew. You may now exchange rings, the priest continued, as if nothing was wrong. As if this was a normal, happy wedding. I reached out to take the ring he held out to me. The cool metal heavy in my palm. Felt cold. Cold and final. Grayson's hand was steady as he slid the ring onto my finger. His touch almost clinical. He didn't look at me as he did it. Didn't show any sign of emotion. His eyes were fixed on something beyond me, beyond this moment. I did the same for him, slipping the band onto his finger with a shaky hand. His skin was warm beneath mine, but it was fleeting. The touch was brief, impersonal. I couldn't help but wonder if he felt anything at all, or if this was just another transaction to him. We are now married, the priest said, his voice echoing in the stillness of the room. I could hear the soft murmurs of approval from the guests, the rustle of silk dresses and the clink of champagne flutes. I tried to smile, tried to appear graceful, but I couldn't. The weight of the ring on my finger felt like an anchor, dragging me down into something I couldn't escape. Grayson turned toward me then, his eyes flicking over my face as if he were studying me. His gaze was unreadable, but there was something there, something I couldn't quite grasp. It unsettled me. The connection between us, however brief, felt too real, too intense. For a moment I felt something stir deep inside me. Something I didn't want to feel. My breath caught in my throat, and I quickly turned away, my eyes scanning the crowd, anything to avoid meeting his gaze. The last thing I needed was for him to see the weakness in my eyes. But as I turned, I saw her, Victoria Montgomery, standing near the back of the chapel. Her eyes narrowed, lips curled in a way that was both familiar and unsettling. She was the one person I hadn't been prepared for. The woman who had been a thorn in my side for years, always hovering in the background, always waiting for a chance to strike. And now it seemed she had found her moment. Her eyes locked on mine, and I knew in an instant that she was here to make sure I didn't forget who I was really marrying, who we were both really trapped by. "Grayson," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the music playing softly in the background. He didn't respond immediately. He simply stared ahead, his jaw clenched. He knew. He had to know. And he wasn't about to let me forget it. "Let's go," he muttered, his voice like gravel as he wheeled himself forward, his gaze fixed on the exit. I followed him, my heart pounding, my body a strange mixture of nerves and adrenaline. I couldn't look back. Not now. Not with Victoria watching. She would make sure I knew my place. But as we neared the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something bigger was happening, something that neither Grayson nor I had anticipated. And I was about to find out exactly what it was. Chapter 4. The house was a beast. Grayson's estate, nestled on the outskirts of the city, was more a fortress than a home. Towering walls of black stone, ivy creeping up like a living thing, windows that seemed to leer down at you with dark, empty eyes. The first time I entered, I could have sworn I heard the place breathe. The floors creaked beneath my feet like it was a living, sentient thing, judging every step I took, every word I whispered. And Grayson, he watched me like a hawk. Since the wedding, everything had changed. I didn't know what to expect from this marriage, but it wasn't this. It wasn't the suffocating silence of the house, the coldness of his gaze, the weight of expectation that hung between us like the thickest fog. At first I thought maybe it was the awkwardness, the tension of the arrangement, but no, there was something else. Something darker. He was always present. Always there, lurking in the shadows. His eyes following my every move. I could never shake the feeling that I was being watched, even when I was alone. There were no servants here, not that I could see. The housekeeper, Mrs. Carrington, kept to herself mostly, and the butler was a distant figure, never speaking unless spoken to. Grayson's world was isolated, self-contained, and now so was mine. I tried to find some sense of normalcy. I tried to make it my own, but it was like I was living in a dream I couldn't wake up from, a nightmare with no end. The massive estate had too many rooms, too many doors, too many forgotten corners that whispered of things I didn't understand. There were strange, jagged edges to this place, things I couldn't quite place, but I felt them in the marrow of my bones. The halls seemed to stretch endlessly, the ceiling so high I couldn't even see the top. The windows were always draped in heavy velvet curtains, blocking out the sun, leaving the house in a perpetual twilight. The only light came from the grand chandeliers that hung like ghosts, illuminating the cold marble floors. Grayson spent most of his time in his study, buried behind his desk, immersed in whatever dark business kept him so distant. It was rare for him to speak to me directly, rare for him to even acknowledge my presence. Except when he was watching me. Those moments when his gaze would linger just a little too long, when his eyes would narrow as I moved around the house. I'd grown used to the quiet, the eerie silence of the place, but it wasn't just the stillness that bothered me. It was the way the house seemed to pulse with an energy I couldn't understand. The way the shadows seemed to move on their own, the way the air felt thick, oppressive, as though it were holding its breath, waiting for something. One night after dinner, Grayson barely spoke during meals. Something strange happened. I was in the library, thumbing through a book I'd found on the shelf. It had been one of those rare moments where I felt at ease, a moment of peace in the otherwise tension-filled days. But then the door to the library creaked open. I didn't have to look up to know who it was. I could feel it, the weight of his presence, the way the room seemed to grow colder. Grayson's footsteps were deliberate as he approached me, But it was his silence that unsettled me. He was there but not there. "What are you doing?" His voice cut through the stillness like a knife, sharp and accusing. I glanced up, my heart skittering in my chest. His eyes were hard, unreadable, studying me as if I were some kind of puzzle. As if he didn't trust me. "I was just reading," I said, my voice a little too calm, a little too tight. He stared at me for a beat too long. Then, without saying another word, he turned and left, the door shutting with a quiet but forceful click. I exhaled, not realizing I had been holding my breath. What was it about him? About this place? Why did it feel like I was walking through a minefield every time I stepped into a new room? Days passed, and the unease continued to grow. It wasn't just Grayson's behavior. There were accidents, small things at first. A vase I'd placed on a table in the hallway, only for it to be knocked over an hour later. A chair in the dining room that I was sure had been pulled out a little too far, making me stumble when I tried to sit. The stairs, slick with freshly polished marble, seemed a little too slippery under my feet. At first, I chalked it up to my nerves. I had never been in such a strange place, surrounded by so many unknowns. But then things escalated. One afternoon, as I was walking down the long hallway toward the kitchen, my foot caught on something. A thin wire stretched tight across the floor. I gasped, barely catching myself before I fell. My heart was racing as I looked down, seeing nothing but the usual carpet and polished wood. But there was no denying the sensation. Something had been there. Someone had placed something in my path. I shuddered, my mind racing. Had Grayson done this? Was he trying to test me? Or was someone else here? Someone else hiding in the shadows, just waiting to make their move? And then, the final straw came one evening, as I made my way up the grand staircase. The house was dark, save for the soft glow of moonlight streaming through the curtains. I had just reached the top when the railing beneath my hand gave way. My heart leapt into my throat as I nearly stumbled forward, my pulse hammering in my ears. What was happening? Was I losing my mind, or was someone trying to hurt me? Grayson appeared at the top of the stairs, his wheelchair rolling smoothly as he surveyed me with that same cool, calculating gaze. "You're careful, aren't you?" he asked, his voice colder than usual. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to snap back. "I'm fine," I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to keep it steady. "Just a little careless." He studied me for a moment, his eyes narrowing, then nodded. "Careful doesn't come easy here." I didn't know what he meant by that, but the words hung in the air like a warning, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The following day I went to the library again. This time, I wasn't sure if I was looking for answers or just trying to escape the unease that clung to every inch of the estate. The door creaked open and I froze. There was something new in the air. A subtle change, like the house was holding its breath. I wasn't alone. As I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me. I whirled around, my heart racing. No one was there. The room was still, too still. But then I heard it. A soft creaking sound, the unmistakable sound of a door opening somewhere in the house. I wasn't alone at all. Grayson's figure appeared in the doorway, his eyes gleaming with an unreadable emotion. "You don't belong here," he said softly, almost as if to himself. "And neither do I." My pulse raced. Was he talking to me? Or was there something else? Something darker lurking in the shadows. Just as the tension became unbearable, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Someone was coming. Someone who might know the truth. And that truth, it was about to shatter everything I thought I knew. Chapter 5. The storm had come out of nowhere. One moment, the sky had been a dull gray, and the next, the wind was howling through the trees, rattling the windows of the estate like a warning. The clouds churned above us, black and swollen, like the heavens were about to collapse. The rain came down in sheets, pounding the roof with such force that it drowned out everything else. I barely heard the thunder anymore. It had become a constant roar, a reminder that the world outside had no regard for the fragile silence that had settled between Grayson and me. The air inside the house was thick, heavy with unspoken words. I had spent the day trying to avoid him, as usual. There had been no reason to speak. He was as distant as ever, watching me with those unreadable eyes, always present but never truly here. It had become a game, a dance, and I was starting to wonder if either of us knew how to step in time. But this time something felt different. The tension between us was unbearable. The silence stretched too thin, ready to snap. I found myself in the study, staring at the fireplace, the flames flickering and dancing in a way that felt too lively for the stillness in my heart. The crackle of the fire was the only sound, and it was suffocating. I turned to leave, but then the door opened, and Grayson stood in the doorway. His wheelchair rolled silently across the room, the darkened windows reflecting his form, but it was his expression that made me freeze. "What's your plan?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the storm like a blade. I blinked, not expecting the confrontation. "What do you mean? You're not here for me, are you?" His eyes were dark, but there was something else, something flickering beneath the cold exterior. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking out of something else, something darker. I didn't know what to say. The words stuck in my throat. He was right, wasn't he? I wasn't here for him. I had been forced into this arrangement, and yet, somehow, it had become a trap I didn't know how to escape from. I could feel the walls around him. Those thick, impenetrable walls he had built. I'd seen them every day, but tonight, something about his question shattered the illusion of control. He wasn't playing the same game anymore. I clenched my fists, swallowing back the emotions rising in my chest. "You think I want this? Think again, Grayson. I'm stuck here just like you." The words stung as soon as they left my mouth, and for a moment I regretted them. I wasn't just angry at him. I was angry at myself. But I couldn't take it back. Grayson's jaw tightened, his gaze turning to ice. "Don't pretend you're the victim here." I wanted to fight back, to tell him how wrong he was, how trapped I felt, but I knew it wouldn't matter. He wouldn't care. He was so far removed from anything that resembled vulnerability. He was a fortress, and I was nothing more than a pawn. But that didn't stop the bitterness that rose in my chest. "You have no idea what it's like," I shot back, my voice trembling despite myself. "You think you can control everything, but you can't. Not even this. Not even us." His eyes darkened, a flicker of something raw passing through them. For the first time, I saw a glimpse of the man beneath the mask. The sharp, controlled exterior cracked, revealing the pain he kept buried deep inside. "You think this is easy for me?" His voice broke, the words heavy with something I couldn't quite name. "You think I enjoy being locked in this damn chair, watching everyone move forward while I'm stuck in this hellhole?" His words hit like a physical blow. I froze, stunned by the vulnerability that had slipped through the cracks. Grayson Wolfe, the billionaire, the untouchable, was broken. I could see it now, in the tightness of his jaw, the pain in his eyes, the way his body seemed to shrink into the chair. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt useless. So I did what I always did, I retreated. "I didn't ask for this," I whispered, but there was no venom in my voice now, no bite. "I didn't either," he replied, his voice softer now, the rage gone. There was nothing left but exhaustion. But here we are. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, suffocating. Neither of us knew what to do with this fragile moment. My heart pounded in my chest, a wild, erratic rhythm that didn't make sense. I wanted to reach out to him to say something, but the distance between us felt like an abyss. You think I don't know what it's like to feel trapped? I asked quietly, unable to stop the words from tumbling out. I feel it every damn day. Like I'm suffocating in my own life, and there's no way out. Grayson didn't say anything for a long time. The storm outside howled, but inside the room, there was a stillness that hung in the air. For the first time, I wasn't sure if we were enemies or something else entirely. I'm not a damn charity case, Evangeline, he muttered finally, his voice hoarse. I don't need you to feel sorry for me. I don't, I said quickly, my voice cracking. I don't feel sorry for you. I don't know what you want from me. You don't trust me, and I'm starting to think I don't trust you either. The words were out before I could stop them, and they landed between us like an explosion. Grayson's eyes flashed, his expression hardening again. You don't trust me. His voice was ice. After everything. You think I'm the one who can't be trusted. I don't know who you are anymore, I shot back, my voice rising. I don't know who I am anymore. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavier than anything I'd ever said. And then, for the briefest of moments, the storm outside seemed to quiet. The wind died down, the rain stopped hammering against the windows. There was nothing left but the two of us, standing in the darkened room, both lost in a world we didn't understand. Grayson's wheelchair rolled a few inches closer to me, and for a second I thought he might say something. But instead he just stared at me, his gaze searching like he was trying to figure out if he could trust me. You're right, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't trust you. But I think I might trust you more than I've trusted anyone in a long time. The words hit me like a punch, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. Before I could speak, the door to the study crashed open, and a figure stepped into the room. My heart stopped. Grayson! The voice was sharp, panicked. We've got a problem. Grayson's face went pale, his eyes hardening in an instant. I turned toward the door, my breath catching in my throat. What the hell was happening? Get out, Grayson said coldly, his voice commanding. We'll talk later. The door slammed shut, and I was left standing there, my heart racing, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. What had just happened? And what was Grayson hiding? Chapter 6. The knock at my door jolted me out of sleep. I sat up in the darkness, my heart pounding hard against my ribs. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in stark white before plunging it back into darkness. I held my breath, straining to hear beyond the heavy thud of my pulse in my ears. The knock came again, harder this time, more insistent. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, my bare feet hitting the cold wooden floor. Who is it? I called out, my voice hoarse. It's me. Grayson's voice was sharp, tight with something that sounded like fear or fury. I rushed to the door and flung it open. Grayson sat there in his chair, his hair damp from sweat or rain, I couldn't tell. His jaw was set, his hands white-knuckled on the wheels. You need to come with me, he said. He didn't wait for an answer. He spun his chair around and rolled down the hall, leaving me to scramble after him. I barely had time to grab a sweater before following him through the shadowed, labyrinthine corridors of the estate. Every flicker of the old chandeliers above us cast monstrous shapes along the walls. He led me to his private study, a place I had only seen glimpses of before, the door always firmly closed. Now it stood wide open, and the air inside pulsed with something electric and dangerous. The moment I stepped inside, I saw the chaos. Files scattered across the massive oak desk. A laptop screen glowed with a web of names and photos connected by jagged red lines. It looked like a crime scene, and maybe it was. Grayson wheeled himself behind the desk and gestured sharply for me to shut the door. I obeyed without question, locking it for good measure. He pointed at the screen. Read. I moved closer, my stomach knotting tighter with every step. At the center of the web was Grayson's name, and radiating out from it were the names of his most trusted associates. People he had worked with for years. People who had been inside this house. People I had eaten dinner with. And next to one name, circled in violent red, were the words, "Primary suspect." It was someone I recognized. Henry Calloway. His right-hand man. His best friend since college. I stared at the screen, my skin crawling. "No," I whispered. "It can't be." Grayson gave a short, humorless laugh. "Oh, it can. And it is. Henry's been selling me out for months. Maybe years." My mind reeled. But why? He has everything. Money, power. Greed doesn't care what you already have, Grayson bit out. His hands shook slightly as he rifled through the papers on his desk. He pulled out a photograph and threw it at me. I caught it awkwardly, staring down at the grainy image. It was Henry, meeting with a man I didn't recognize, but deep down my gut twisted in recognition. That face. That insignia on his ring. I knew where he came from. My family. Cold sweat broke out down my spine. Grayson's voice was a low growl. "He's been working with the same people who tried to destroy me years ago. The same syndicate that set the fire at my factory. The same ones who left me in this chair." I swallowed hard, forcing the panic down. "What are you going to do?" His eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment the air between us burned. "Find out what else he knows. Find out who else is involved. And stop them before they finish what they started." I nodded, feeling sick. Every step closer to the truth was a step closer to my own exposure. If Grayson dug deep enough, he would find out everything. He would find out about my family. About how the very blood in my veins was tainted by the same people who had ruined him. And he would never forgive me. Grayson pushed back from the desk abruptly. "Get dressed. We're leaving in 10 minutes. "Leaving? Where?" "We're going to confront Henry. Tonight." The rain battered against the windows as I stumbled back to my room, my mind spinning. I threw on jeans and boots with shaking hands, my thoughts a chaotic whirl. How much time did I have before everything unraveled? When I returned to the foyer, Grayson was already there, an umbrella balanced awkwardly across his lap, his jaw tight. Without a word, we rolled and raced through the storm to his car, a black SUV with reinforced doors. Grayson drove with one hand, his movements sharp and sure, as though adrenaline had sharpened his senses. The ride was silent, except for the steady slap of rain on the windshield. My hands twisted in my lap, and every mile brought me closer to a collision I couldn't avoid. We pulled up outside a sleek glass building downtown. Henry's personal office. The lights inside flickered like ghosts through the rain. Grayson's eyes narrowed. "Stay behind me. Let me handle him." I nodded mutely, my throat too tight for words. We entered the building. The security guard barely looked up. Bought and paid for, no doubt. Grayson knew exactly where he was going, wheeling fast down the marble corridors to the elevator. The ride up was suffocating. When the doors opened, Henry was waiting. His smile faltered the second he saw Grayson. His eyes flicked to me and widened, but just for a fraction of a second. Then he recovered, stepping forward with false cheer. "Grayson, this is a surprise." "Cut the crap," Grayson snarled. "We know." Henry's face tightened. "Know what?" Grayson rolled closer, his voice low and lethal. "Don't insult me, Henry. I have the proof. You've been selling me out. Meeting with the Marcanos." The blood drained from Henry's face. A second later he was moving. Fast, too fast for a man with nothing to hide. He lunged for the drawer in his desk. Grayson was faster. He drew a gun from under his jacket and leveled it at Henry with chilling calm. "Don't," Grayson said. Henry froze, his hand inches from the drawer. I stood there, frozen too, watching the man I had once laughed with over dinners show his true face. Watching Grayson reveal just how much he had changed to survive. Henry raised his hands slowly. "You don't understand, Grayson. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. If you knew what they had on me." Grayson cut him off. "I don't give a damn about your excuses." Henry's gaze flicked to me again, and something twisted in his smile. Something cold and cruel. "But maybe she does," he said softly. Grayson stiffened. I felt his gaze on me without turning my head. "What the hell are you talking about?" Grayson growled. Henry's smile widened. "You think you can trust her? You think she's here by accident?" The room tilted around me. "Evangeline's father was one of them," Henry said, savoring every word. "She's been playing you this whole time." Grayson turned toward me slowly, his face a mask of disbelief and betrayal. "No," I said, my voice a desperate whisper. It's not what you think." But it was too late. I could see it in his eyes. The walls I had been chipping away at, the trust we had started to build, it all crumbled in an instant. Behind me, the elevator doors dinged open, and the sound of boots hitting marble echoed down the hall. They were here. Grayson's enemies. My family's allies. Coming for us both. And I had nowhere left to hide. Chapter 7. The night air burned cold against my skin as we fled the office. Grayson didn't speak to me, didn't even look at me. He pushed his chair harder than I'd ever seen, the wheels skidding across the slick marble. I kept pace beside him, my heart a roaring mess in my chest, every breath a battle against the crushing silence stretching between us. We burst into the parking garage, the concrete damp and shining under the buzzing fluorescent lights. Grayson jammed the car door open, hoisting himself into the driver's seat without waiting for help. I slid into the passenger side, drenched in fear, shame, and something sharp that I couldn't quite name. He peeled out of the garage, the tires screaming against the wet pavement. Rain smeared the world into ghostly shapes outside the windows, but I barely saw it. All I could see was the look in his eyes. Hurt, betrayal, confusion. And worse. A flicker of hope dying. "Say something," I rasped. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "What's left to say? It's not what you think." "No." His voice sliced through me, raw and broken. "Because it sure as hell looks like you've been lying to me since the day we met." I bit down hard on the sob clawing up my throat. "I didn't know who you were when I first got involved. I swear, Grayson. It wasn't a setup. But you knew later." His words cracked like a whip. "You knew and you stayed. You let me trust you." I shook my head violently, desperate to reach him. "I stayed because of you. Because somewhere along the way, you became more important than any of this." A muscle jumped in his jaw, but he didn't look at me. The rain came down harder, a thunderous drumbeat that matched the panic hammering in my veins. I had to make him see. I had to make him understand before it was too late. He turned off the main road, weaving through the city's backstreets, moving fast and reckless like he didn't care if we crashed. Maybe he didn't. "Grayson," I said, my voice breaking. "Please." The car screeched to a stop in a deserted alley. He killed the engine and turned to face me at last. His eyes a storm of fury and something even more terrifying, pain. "Tell me the truth. Right now." I swallowed hard, my throat raw. "My father. He was part of the Marcanos. He arranged for me to get close to you. To learn your weaknesses." Grayson flinched like I'd slapped him. "But I didn't." I pressed forward, desperate. "I didn't follow through. I didn't tell them anything. Couldn't. You weren't who they said you were. You're..." My voice cracked. "You're so much more." He stared at me, breathing hard, his chest heaving. I could feel the wall between us, thick and impenetrable, but for the first time there were cracks. "You expect me to believe that," he said roughly. Tears burned hot against my eyes. Hated crying. Hated showing weakness. But this wasn't weakness, it was truth. "I don't expect anything," I whispered. "I just need you to know. It's real. What's between us. It's real for me." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The rain battered the car, the world outside shrinking to just the two of us in the silence. Then Grayson reached for me. His hand cupped my jaw, rough and trembling, and for a second I thought he was going to push me away. Instead, he pulled me closer. The kiss was like a dam breaking, wild, desperate, filled with all the fury and longing we'd tried to deny. His mouth was bruising against mine, fierce and claiming, but there was tenderness there too, buried deep, a broken kind of sweetness that undid me completely. I kissed him back with everything I had. With every regret, every hope, every silent prayer that somehow this could still be saved. When he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against mine, our breaths mingling in the small space between us. "I hate you for making me feel this way," he said hoarsely. "I know," I whispered. "I hate me too." For a brief, impossible heartbeat, it felt like maybe we could survive this. That love, if it was love, might be enough. But the moment shattered when his phone buzzed sharply between us. He jerked back, fumbling for it, his face going still as he read the message. "What is it?" I asked, my stomach sinking. Without answering, he threw the car into gear and sped off into the night. I clutched the door handle, my heart hammering. "Grayson, talk to me." His jaw was clenched so tightly I thought he might shatter his own teeth. He didn't say a word until we pulled up outside his estate. Armed guards swarmed the grounds, their faces grim. Something was very, very wrong. Grayson yanked his chair from the back seat and practically threw himself into it. He didn't wait for me to catch up, barreling toward the house with a furious momentum I could barely match. Inside, the air was electric with tension. His security chief met him at the door, a grim expression carved into his face. "They found another leak," he said without preamble. "Inside the estate. Inside your personal staff." Grayson's face darkened. "Who?" The guard hesitated, then jerked his chin toward me. My blood turned to ice. Grayson turned slowly, his gaze landing on me with the weight of 1,000 accusations. "No," I said, stumbling back. "It's not me." But the guard shoved a file into Grayson's hands, and when he flipped it open, I saw the photos. Me. Talking to someone in the gardens a few nights ago. An old friend of my father's. One of the Marcanos. It had been innocent, a warning, not a betrayal, but the pictures didn't tell that story. They told another. One I couldn't explain away. Grayson stared at the images, his face shuttered and cold. "I trusted you," he said, his voice low and deadly. "I didn't betray you," cried. "I was trying to protect you." He laughed, harsh and hollow. "You're very good, Evangeline. I'll give you that." Almost had me fooled. "No, please, you have to believe me." But he was already turning away, barking orders to his guards. "Get her out of my house." The words sliced through me, leaving me bleeding. 2 guards grabbed my arms roughly. I struggled, tears blinding me, but it was no use. As they dragged me toward the door, I saw Grayson standing there, cold and unreachable. And behind him, standing in the shadows, smiling, was Henry, alive, triumphant, waiting for the final move. The real enemy wasn't gone. He was just getting started. And Grayson didn't even see it coming. Chapter 8. The night swallowed me whole as the guards dumped me outside the estate gates like trash. Rain pelted my skin, soaking through my clothes, but I barely felt it. All I could see was Grayson's face as he ordered me away. No hint of the man who had kissed me like I was the only thing that mattered. Only cold, merciless betrayal burning in his eyes. I stumbled blindly into the dark, every step weighted with heartbreak. My chest felt hollow, ripped open and raw. I wanted to scream, to tear the world apart, but all I could do was keep moving forward. I couldn't let it end like this. Not when I knew I hadn't betrayed him. Not when the real threat was still hiding in the shadows. I found myself at the edge of the city before I realized where I was going. The only place left that could give me answers. I shoved open the rusted door of the abandoned warehouse, my boots splashing through puddles on the cracked floor. It was empty, at least it seemed that way. But I wasn't fooled. I could feel eyes on me, feel the weight of unseen threats pressing against my skin. Kept moving. In a dark corner, hidden beneath torn tarps and broken crates, I found it. The files Henry thought he'd destroyed. I had stashed them here weeks ago when I first suspected something deeper was rotting in Grayson's world. My hands shook as I flipped through the papers. Financial records. Surveillance logs. Communications intercepted between the Marcanos and someone inside Grayson's inner circle. And then I found it, buried in a thick folder marked with a red X. Blueprints of Grayson's estate. Security codes. Detailed logs of his movements. And scrawled across one page in vicious red ink. Ensure he is crippled. Break him. I felt the blood drain from my face. The accident, the one that had confined Grayson to a wheelchair, was no accident at all. It was a hit. Planned, cold-blooded attack. And the worst part, it hadn't come from the Marcanos. It had come from someone inside Grayson's world. Panic clawed at me, but I forced myself to read on. There was a name, buried deep in the correspondence, disguised through coded messages and false fronts. My stomach turned as I decoded it. Marcus Brandt, Grayson's mentor, his closest advisor. The man who had been by his side since the beginning. The man Grayson trusted like a second father. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the file. This couldn't be real. Couldn't. But it was. And if Marcus had orchestrated the accident, he would not hesitate to finish the job now that I was sniffing too close to the truth. I shoved the files into my jacket, my mind racing. I had to get to Grayson. Had to warn him. Even if he hated me, even if he never forgave me, I couldn't let him walk into a death trap. I tore out of the warehouse, running so hard my lungs burned. I didn't stop, didn't think, just moved. Every second I wasted was another second Marcus could be closing in. When I reached the estate again, the gates were locked, the guards doubled. No way they'd let me in through the front. I circled around to the back, slipping through the dense woods that bordered the property. The storm had knocked out part of the security fencing, and I squeezed through the gap, ignoring the way the metal tore at my jacket and my skin. Lights glowed in the windows. I could see Grayson inside, pacing. His chair abandoned as he braced himself between walls with his arms. His face was a mask of anger and heartbreak. He didn't see Marcus stepping out of the shadows behind him, didn't see the glint of silver in Marcus's hand. I sprinted forward, my scream swallowed by the storm. The back door was locked, but adrenaline made me reckless. I grabbed a stone and smashed the glass, reaching in to twist the handle. The alarm blared, but I didn't care. I tore through the house, my soaked boots skidding on the polished floors. "Grayson!" shouted. He turned, confusion flashing across his face, before Marcus lunged. I threw myself forward, slamming into Marcus just as the knife arced down. We hit the ground hard, the blade skittering out of his hand. He roared, furious, and backhanded me across the face. Pain exploded behind my eyes, but I didn't let go. I fought dirty, knees and elbows, biting and clawing like a cornered animal. Grayson struggled to pull himself across the floor toward us, fury etched in every line of his face. Marcus finally shoved me off, scrambling for the knife. I grabbed a broken lamp and hurled it at him, the base hitting him square in the shoulder. He staggered, cursing. Guards burst into the room, weapons drawn, but they froze, uncertain who the real threat was. "Marcus!" Grayson's voice cracked through the chaos. "Stand down." Marcus laughed, a low, ugly sound. "It was always going to end this way, Grayson. You were too soft, too weak." Grayson's eyes burned with betrayal. "I trusted you." "That was your first mistake," Marcus sneered. "The world doesn't reward loyalty. It punishes it." In one fluid motion, Marcus lunged for the knife again. Before the guards could react, Grayson grabbed a fallen cane and hurled it at Marcus's legs. Marcus stumbled, and the guards tackled him, forcing him to the ground. I slumped back against the wall, every muscle trembling, blood pounding in my ears. It was over, or so I thought. Grayson turned to me, his face carved from stone. "Why are you here?" he demanded. I reached into my jacket with shaking fingers and threw the file at his feet. "Because I couldn't let you die." He stared at the papers, then at me. For a long, terrible moment he said nothing. Then he gestured for the guards to take Marcus away. Silence fell. Just the two of us. And all the wreckage between us. He rolled forward slowly, stopping inches away from me. His face was closed, unreadable. "You knew all along," he said quietly. "You knew about the betrayal." "Not all of it," I whispered. "I found out tonight." He studied me, his gaze cutting through every lie, every half-truth. And then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, "I don't know if I can trust you." Pain lanced through me, sharper than any blade. "I know," I said. "But I'll prove it." He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, one of the guards rushed back into the room, pale and panicked. "Sir, we have another problem." Grayson's head snapped up. "What now?" The guard swallowed hard. "It's Henry. He's disappeared." A chill rippled down my spine. "And he didn't leave empty-handed." Grayson's face darkened. "What did he take?" The guard hesitated. Then he said the words that made my blood run cold. "He took the prototype, sir. The one you were developing for the government." For a heartbeat, the world stopped spinning. And in the stunned silence that followed, I realized something even more horrifying. Henry wasn't just playing for revenge. He was about to start a war. Chapter 9. The estate vibrated with tension, every creak of the walls, every shifting shadow stretching nerves tighter. Grayson and I barely spoke as we prepared, but something had changed between us. A silent, fragile thread woven through shared danger and unspoken truths. Grayson armed himself, checking the magazine of his sidearm with quick, practiced movements. I grabbed the second gun from the locked drawer he'd wordlessly pointed me toward, the metal cold against my palm. Somewhere deep inside, fear twisted, but I buried it. There wasn't time for fear now. The windows rattled in their frames as a helicopter thundered overhead, searchlights slashing across the grounds. Grayson's jaw tensed. "They're coming for the prototype," he said grimly. "Not just Henry. Not just betrayal. Full assault." We moved through the house, locking down every vulnerable point, setting emergency protocols Grayson had designed but never truly believed he'd need. His hands moved quickly, confidently. Mine were steady, despite the pounding in my chest. The first shot cracked through the night, shattering a window 2 rooms away. Grayson didn't flinch. He gripped his gun tighter and gave me a nod. We took positions, me at the back entrance, him near the main hall. Another shot. A roar of engines. Tires biting into gravel. I glimpsed them through the broken window. Men in black tactical gear pouring from SUVs, weapons drawn, moving with brutal precision. Henry's men. And leading them, smug and invincible, was Marcus. Live. free, and more dangerous than ever. Marcus barked orders, signaling 2 men toward the north side where Grayson was. My heart stuttered. They were splitting up, surrounding him. I slipped through the hallway, hugging the shadows. I had to reach Grayson before they did. A door exploded off its hinges behind me. I ducked instinctively as bullets sprayed overhead, splinters flying like shrapnel. Rolling, I fired twice, catching one of the men in the thigh. He went down with a grunt, dropping his weapon. I didn't wait to see if he stayed down. I sprinted toward the main hall, my breath tearing through my lungs. Grayson was there, waiting. He dropped one attacker with a single shot, fluid and merciless. Another man tried to flank him, but Grayson spun his chair sharply, kicking out with a brutal strike that sent the man sprawling. For a moment it felt almost easy, like we could win this. Until Marcus himself stepped through the shattered doorway, weapon trained straight on Grayson. "Enough!" he barked, and his men froze. Grayson's gun was steady, aimed at Marcus's chest. But I could see it, the tension in his shoulders, the calculation in his eyes. Marcus wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to end it. "Give me the prototype," Marcus said coolly. "Or watch her die." Took me a second to realize he meant me. The muzzle of another gun pressed against the back of my head. I stiffened, fury burning through me, but I kept my hands still. Grayson's eyes flicked to me. Just for a heartbeat. It was enough. I shifted my weight subtly, bracing. Grayson spoke, his voice calm, cold. "You always were a coward, Marcus." Marcus laughed, the sound harsh and ugly. "I learned from the best." Distraction. Moved. Dropping low, I grabbed the gunman's wrist, twisting sharply. He shouted, his shot going wild, hitting the chandelier overhead. Glass rained down, a shimmering explosion of light and danger. Chaos erupted. I drove my elbow into the gunman's throat, wrenching his weapon free. Grayson fired, hitting another of Marcus's men square in the chest. The man crumpled. Marcus cursed and fired at Grayson. I hurled myself into Grayson's path, the bullet grazing my arm instead of finding its mark in him. Pain ripped through me, hot and blinding, but I didn't fall. Grayson's face twisted with something raw, something that cracked open the wall he'd built between us. He launched himself forward, using the momentum of his chair to tackle Marcus around the waist. They crashed to the ground, grappling, fists and rage and betrayal colliding in a brutal storm. I staggered up, pressing my hand to the bleeding wound, and aimed at one of Marcus's men trying to flank Grayson. 2 shots, clean and fast. He went down hard. Grayson and Marcus rolled, fighting viciously. Marcus got the upper hand, pinning Grayson down, gun pressed to his forehead. "No!" I gasped, running forward. Marcus grinned, savage. "Say goodbye, Grayson." I didn't think. I threw myself at Marcus, slamming into his side with every ounce of strength left in me. The gun went off, but the bullet missed, embedding itself in the floor. We rolled apart. Grayson grabbed the weapon, training it on Marcus. "End it," Marcus sneered, blood trickling from his lip. "You don't have it in you." Grayson's finger tightened on the trigger. I held my breath. Then, slowly, Grayson lowered the gun. "No," he said. "You're going to rot for this." Marcus lunged, but before he could reach Grayson again, guards swarmed the room. Real guards. One still loyal to Grayson. They wrestled Marcus down, shackling his wrists behind his back. It was over. The adrenaline drained out of me so fast my knees buckled. Grayson caught me before I hit the ground, his strong arms wrapping around me. "You're bleeding," he said, voice rough. "I'm fine," I lied, even as the world tilted. Grayson pressed his forehead to mine, his grip tightening. "You saved my life." "You saved mine," I whispered. Something deep and unspoken passed between us, something fierce and undeniable. The walls he'd built shattered. He kissed me, not a question, not a plea. Promise. A tether pulling me back from the edge of darkness. I kissed him back with everything I had, with every broken, battered piece of me. Around us the estate burned. Sirens howled in the distance. But in that moment there was only him. Yes. Until the ground shuddered beneath our feet. We broke apart, both instinctively reaching for our weapons. An explosion rocked the east wing of the estate, flames spewing into the night sky. Grayson's expression turned grim. That wasn't Marcus. I grabbed his hand, helping him into his chair. Then who? A figure emerged from the smoke, striding toward us with the calm inevitability of a nightmare. Henry. Alive. And armed with something far deadlier than any gun. In his hands, cradled like a prize, was the prototype, the weapon Grayson had spent years perfecting. The weapon powerful enough to shift the balance of power across the world. He smiled, slow and cold. You should have killed me when you had the chance, he said. Behind him, black SUVs rolled in, their engines growling like beasts. I tightened my grip on the gun, my heart hammering against my ribs. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 10. Smoke still curled into the bruised sky, but the battle was over. The estate grounds were littered with broken bodies, abandoned weapons, the last echoes of chaos fading into the rising sun. Grayson's hand found mine, bruised and bloodied but still achingly warm, anchoring me to the moment. We were alive. We had survived. He turned to me, searching my face with eyes no longer hardened by distrust, but softened by something infinitely more dangerous, hope. The sirens in the distance grew louder. Help was coming. Cleanup would come. Explanations. Trials. Rebuilding. But none of that mattered, not right now. Not with the way Grayson was looking at me, as if I was the only thing holding the world together. You stayed, he said hoarsely, his thumb brushing across the cut on my cheek. I never left, I breathed, the words trembling out of me. His face twisted, pain, regret, wonder tangled into something too big, too raw. Slowly, he cupped my face in his calloused hands, as if afraid I might vanish. I pushed you away, he said. I tried to destroy what we had because I was too afraid to believe it was real. I shook my head, tears burning my throat. You had every reason not to trust me. But I do, he said fiercely. God help me, I trust you more than anyone. The sunrise bathed him in gold, the lines of his face carved deep with scars, with battles fought and lost, with pain endured. He wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But maybe love wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about choosing each other, every broken piece. I leaned into his touch, closing my eyes as his forehead rested against mine. In the wreckage of everything we thought we knew, something new was being built, something real. I love you, I whispered. The words hung between us, fragile and terrifying. Grayson exhaled a shaky breath. Then he kissed me, slow and reverent, like he was memorizing me, like he was breathing life into both of us. The kiss deepened, his hand sliding to the nape of my neck, pulling me closer until there was no space between us. When we broke apart, he was smiling. A real smile. Raw and brilliant. I love you too, he said. I think. Maybe I always have. A fresh wave of emotion crashed over me, stealing my breath. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, my temple, my mouth, each touch branding me deeper. The estate staff, battered but loyal, surrounded us quietly, tending to the wounded, salvaging what they could. But for a long, blissful moment, the world shrank to just us. Grayson's voice was low in my ear. Marry me. I laughed, a broken, joyful sound. Grayson. We're already married. He pulled back, his smile crooked. Not because we had to. Not because of some contract or protection deal. Marry me because you choose me. I saw the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. The same man who had faced death without flinching now holding his heart out to me, terrified. "I do," I said, no hesitation. He blinked, as if he hadn't dared believe it could be that simple. "I choose you," I whispered. "I'll choose you every day." He kissed me again, the promise sealed between us. Later, after the medics had checked my arm, after Grayson had been seen to for the bruises and the cracked ribs he'd stubbornly ignored, we stood together before what remained of the grand estate. Half of it was ruined. Smoke-blackened walls, shattered windows. But Grayson didn't seem to care. Neither did I. Hand in hand, we faced the wreckage like a pair of survivors staring at the foundation of their new life. "You know," he said, a teasing glint in his eye, "this wasn't how I imagined our wedding night." I laughed again, the sound lighter, freer. "I don't know. Explosions, gunfights, confessions of undying love. Seems about right." He pulled me against him, tucking me against his chest. His heartbeat strong and steady beneath my cheek. "We could do it again. Proper ceremony. Somewhere safe. Somewhere beautiful." I looked up at him, smiling. "Anywhere with you is beautiful." His arms tightened around me, as if daring the universe to try and take me away again. "We'll build something better," he said. "Stronger. A new life built on trust, not secrets. On love, not obligation." Days blurred together in the aftermath. Police reports, interrogations, the unraveling of Henry's empire. Marcus turned on him almost immediately, singing like a canary for a lighter sentence. Grayson's estate became a fortress once more, but this time it wasn't built to keep people out. It was a home. For both of us. The legal side of our marriage, once a cold, clinical agreement, was quietly dissolved, and replaced with a new license, one signed with trembling hands and tearful laughter. No contracts, no deadlines. Just vows whispered beneath an archway of white roses in the garden, Grayson's thumb brushing away my tears as he promised to love me, honor me, fight for me. "Even when the world falls apart," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Especially then." We spent the night beneath the stars, no grand ballroom, no crowds. Just us, wrapped in blankets by the fire pit, stealing kisses between sips of wine. He traced every scar on my body with reverence, kissed every old wound like a prayer. When his shirt came off, I did the same, my fingertips memorizing every battle he'd survived, every story written in his skin. "I love all of it," I whispered against his heart. "Every part of you." He shuddered, burying his face in my hair. "You're the only thing that makes me feel whole." We made love slowly, reverently, shedding every last remnant of fear and doubt between whispered confessions and broken moans. It wasn't perfect, not neat, not scripted, but it was real. It was ours. When dawn broke, I woke to find him watching me, his fingers idly tracing circles on my bare hip. "You're staying," he said softly, wonder threading his voice. "I'm never leaving," I promised. The weeks turned into months. The scars faded, but the memories stayed, carved deep into our bones. We rebuilt the estate together. Stronger walls, safer rooms, but filled with laughter and light instead of suspicion and loneliness. Sometimes we fought loud, fiery clashes that ended in breathless apologies and even breathless kisses. Sometimes we cried, grieving the people we used to be, the innocence we'd lost. But always we came back to each other. Love wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. It was raw, relentless, real. One night, curled up on the couch with Grayson's arms wrapped around me and the fire crackling low, he pressed a kiss to my temple and murmured, "I'm not afraid anymore." I turned to face him, my heart aching in the best way. "Neither am I." We were two broken souls stitched together not by circumstance or desperation, but by choice, by love. And in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, I knew. This was the life we had fought for. This was the love we had bled for. Not perfect, but perfect for us. Forever. If you enjoyed this billionaire romance audiobook, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Romance Hub Library. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting new story. Your support means the world. See you in the next one.